In this segment, we're going to look at aesthetics and functionality, and this correlates quite strongly to some of the things we've already looked at. Internet conventions, which are really about functionality of the user interface, and aesthetics, which are about the formal resolution of how something looks, which is often connected to the content. We can think about this in a very simple way when building a user interface in terms of how it looks and how it works. And a user interface designer tends to work with both of these things together. So we're going to pull these things apart to look at them separately. So if we think about how to turn this into a button, for instance, we could make some design moves that are purely aesthetic to make this happen. We might create a background shape behind the type, so we've got a physical area that we know is interactive. We might add some text so we know what the button is going to do. We might decide we want the button to look three-dimensional to make it look physical. We could change the typography, we could change the color of the typography as well. All of these things might make part of our interface look a certain way, but it might not necessarily change how it works. If we look at how it works, we could take the same shape, but the how it works part might be more about changing the states of the button. So if a mouse hovers over it, it might change color, and when it's clicked, it might change color again. So how it works and how it looks are not mutually exclusive. If we look at a more contemporary example of that, and we take a much more reduced version of an interface, a more minimal interface, we could look at the difference between how things look and how things work with a much more minimal language. Here, how it looks is actually very similar to how it works. We don't need to try and create something that physically looks like a button because we already understand that everything on the screen is going to be interactive due to interface conventions that we're already familiar with. So how it looks and how it works become fused into one thing. The aesthetics and the functionality become merged together as one interface element. And in contemporary interface design, this is a good way to think about when something is successful, when both the aesthetics and the functionality are working together in a very harmonious way to form the interface. To use some of the same language we've already looked at, the aesthetic part of the interface design is about giving the interface a sense of individuality, whereas the functional part of the interface design is about giving it some familiarity, some ease of use. And when you put these two things together, it can be very powerful. So the aesthetics are creating an individual feeling, but the functionality of the interface, the familiarity of it, is making it easy to use as well. So you have both functionality and visual interest, and putting these things together is really the key to making a successful user interface.